Hello and welcome back to another speed build video. My name's Jess and today I'm building in Windenburg on a 30 by 20 lot, and today's build is of course intended for spellcasters. So I did originally build this in Glimmerbrook, but there were some trees on the front of the lot that just kind of made it hard to see the front of the build. So I thought it'd be a little easier in Windenburg, and I love Windenburg. I love building here. I think it's probably the most beautiful world. But let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to know what other people think. We definitely have a ton of new worlds that are very like on par with Windenburg, but I just think like they nailed it with Get Together. Anyways, well, I guess the other thing to mention about my love of Windenburg is I actually have a Windenburg mouse pad. And you know you're obsessed with The Sims when other people give you Sims related presents. So of course it was a present. And I love it. But getting back to this build and these houses, when I start a build, I always kind of have a few ideas in mind that I kind of want to add in to the build, and it kind of gives me a direction. So with this build, I knew I wanted to do this kind of glass bridge. You can see the start of it where it connects the two houses. And ages ago, I saw a picture on Pinterest of the super modern lake house that had this glass bridge over the lake, and I've always wanted to add that into a build, but whenever I've tried, it just hasn't looked quite right. And I do think it's funny that I made it work in this build, but I think it has such a beautiful effect. Now, of course, realistically, the Sims who live in these two houses would have to trust each other quite a bit to have their houses connected in that way. But either way, you know, sometimes you just gotta build for what's pretty. And I think it's so pretty. It turned out so nice. And then the other idea that I knew I wanted to incorporate in this build was I wanted to use the window from Realm of Magic, the circle window, and you'll see in just a second when I place the windows on the black house. And I just think it was such a cool effect. So I really like this, and I think it's so interesting because each house is very different in the style and how it looks, but I think they're really like harmonious. And one element of that, which I was way too happy about this when I did it, but with the roof, I really struggled with what textures to use. And then I thought about using like the opposite contrasting color in each house. So for the light house, I used a dark roof. For the dark house, I used a light roof. And I just think it unifies them in such a cool way. So just small things that make my builder brain really happy. And yeah, so you can see this all really coming together. I used the windows also from Growing Together. That doesn't sound right for some reason. Growing Together. Yeah, I think that's what it is on the black house, and I think that was really nice. And then I used like quite a mix on the white house, but I think, yeah, a lot of base game, university, the industrial kit, and also Growing Together. And I think we covered it all. Oh, the retail, that arched window is from the retail one. I can't remember what pack we got retail in. There are so many packs. It is so hard to keep track of everything. And especially since I took such a long break from building, I feel like I'm totally relearning the catalog and especially adjusting to all the new items. It's very fun though, because I feel like every time I build, I discover something new. And I definitely did with the interior of this build, have a lot of different items. And I just think they're so cute. So you can see we're kind of moving on to the landscaping. And with the landscaping of this build, I really wanted to strike a balance between it looking kind of natural, but then having some more like manicured elements to the build. So how I did that was I kept it more wild, more natural around the lake area. And then I had each house has like a little section of landscaping that's kind of fenced off, and I just think it ended up looking really nice, and I hope this makes it work really well for different lots if you don't want to have your Sims live in Glimmerbrook. I really do think it will work nicely in a lot of different worlds. But here you can see I couldn't do just a normal rectangular planter. So I went ahead and used these pieces from Jungle Adventure. They are in Live Edit, and I just sized them down. And if you do that, you're kind of able to make a curved planter. Of course, it's not perfect. You can see it's a little pointy in some areas, but I think it just adds to the sort of like light whimsy I wanted with this build. So it's really nice. I will say it's very monotonous. It's always so funny seeing it sped up because it's pretty time consuming, and seeing it go so quickly, it's just, I wish I could do that in real life. That would be super nice. But the effect of it, I love. It's so worth it. But I will say, usually that's something I enjoy, like really monotonous placement. But for whatever reason, the day that I was building this section, I didn't want to do it. I almost, at this point, just deleted them, and was just going to put a few random rocks in. But I did it. I, of course, finished this one off camera because I figure you kind of get the idea of how the placement works. So, like this one is bigger, so of course it took longer. And I was sure you didn't want to see a whole video of just placing little fencing down. So here, this was one of my like favorite little landscaping features I did. So you can see with the lighthouse, I used all the like different white flowers, just all my favorites. But now correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we have any naturally occurring black flowers. And of course, in the landscaping options we have in game, there is none. And all I was finding was like some purple that wasn't super deep purple. And I did use the bush that has a deeper purple. So what I ended up doing was using the rose bouquet that we got from Cottage Living, and there's this really gorgeous black swatch, which I do love to use often because I feel like it's just has a lot of personality. But this is why I love the tool mod. It's for all these small things where you can just kind of customize anything and everything in a build. But so all I did was just size it up to different sizes and then scooch it down with the tool mod. And I think it has such a cool effect, and then really kind of brings in that contrasting color that I was really trying to go for with this build. And yeah, really, really enjoyed the effect of that. And again, it was one of those things when I was building this though. Usually I enjoy that kind of thing. I enjoy the process. Oh my gosh, I just was so over it, but definitely watching it back, totally worth it. It's a great effect and highly recommend it if you're a builder. It is a fun way to sort of change up landscaping by using the potted plants that we have in game and just sinking them down so you can't see the pot anymore, and you can get things that just look a little bit more custom. There's a particular tree that works really well because there's a bunch of colorful swatches. I think it's from Seasons, and I use it in a lot of like autumn builds because there's an orange swatch, and I think there's a red one that would work really well for like Christmassy builds, which it's the perfect time of the year to do those. But here you can see I'm getting together the backyard, and with these builds, I wanted to make sure it looked like it was a fun place to be. And so I wanted there to be different activities, but I also wanted you to get a sense of the personality of the Sims that lived here. So definitely this is very much the Green Thumb sort of house. And that mainly came about because I wanted to use the Greenhouse Haven kit. I love that kit. I haven't been able to use it as much as I would like. So being able to add it in here was so fun. And it's crazy how just in that one kit, you really get the sense of having like a Green Thumb sim. I think it's so cool. The only thing I wish we did get with that kit is like a usable planter. I think that would have been really cool. But otherwise, I love it. And I will say the like potted plant we got with that kit, just the little one that kind of has the like vines, leaves kind of overflowing. I use so much in this build, like at least 10 times, if not more. So get ready to see it a lot, but I just feel like it's just perfect for every little like shelf, every bit of cluttering. And as you can see, I used it here. So this is just the beginning. But with this build, I will definitely give you a warning. I hope you like clutter because this is a very cluttered build. I really wanted you to get the idea. It was magical Sims that lived here. So I used a lot of different elements from like paranormal, werewolves, realm of magic, of course. And actually base game has a ton of items that work really well. So anyways, we'll see that when we get to the interior. But here you can see I'm working on the back porch of the darker house. And there, you know, a lot of what ends up happening when I'm putting these together is it's just whatever fits. So a bar fit here, and I thought that would be perfect. And it's something fun to do. I kind of assume the Sims that live here would be good friends. I just feel like it makes sense with this build, and like I said, with the glass bridge connecting the build. So I kind of figured it would be fun for them to hang out. And so in my mind, it kind of implies that the Sim who lives here is a little bit more creatively oriented instead of being a green thumb. But here you can see we're working on just the little space we have outside of the glass bridge. And again, I didn't like the pot that this tree has. I believe it's from Laundry Day. So I just sunk it into the ground and used a just gardening pot that we have. And I think it looks nice and matches the build style a little better. And here you can see this is something I do in the rest of the build. So normally I do an entire build and then build it again when I'm recording, but I'm trying to get away from that because it's just, it takes so long. And I realized what I could do is just grab out all the pieces I think will work and kind of figure it out on the fly. So I do that a lot. All of a sudden, a ton of items will appear and those are all the pieces I intend to clutter with, and I'm kind of figuring out the layout as I go. So it is really fun to build in this way. It's funny because it feels very like different for me, but it's so obvious. I don't know why I haven't done this before. But anyways, it's just crazy because I've been building on YouTube for so long. And only now is like, oh, what if I just, you know, get the basic layout down and just do it all at once, and I can just pause the camera and figure it out and then go back and start filming again. Anyways, that's just, you know, how my brain works as I'm building and all the little things I'm thinking about. But anyways, I love how this came together, but you will see some layout changes, and you are definitely going to see me cluttering up a lot and using the tool mod a lot. But I really love how these houses came out, and I do think there's a slight Victorian feel, which I think just naturally happens for me when I'm doing like witchy kind of builds. If I'm not doing a cottage one, it's definitely more like Victorian. But I do think I tried to strike this balance between a more modern style of build and something that does have more of a whimsical, kind of old feeling, like lived in feeling. So here you can see that's kind of what I'm trying to do in the kitchen. I tried out a few different cabinets, and one thing that I did struggle with, I thought it would be pretty easy to build this in one tone. I was like, oh, like all the items will be available to me, but we have different like temperatures of black and white, and so a lot of the swatches actually don't match that well. So that's what I was finding with the cabinets. They just didn't match in with the cottage living cabinets counters that I used. So anyways, I figured it out, and I think it looked so nice. I definitely struggled initially with how to put cabinets on this because the windows were in the way, but having the shelf connect them, I think, was so effective. And of course I got to clutter it, which was really fun. And I just really, really love how this little kitchen turned out. This was the first room that I did, and it definitely set the tone for the build. I had so much fun with this. I definitely was a little bit too much of a perfectionist in terms of like how much time I spent on this build. But it's so easy to do with the tool mod to just like continue to just adjust things and have the like scaling to the exact level that you want. And so I definitely did that with this build. So one thing with these builds is because I didn't build them initially, and also I'm sure if you're a builder out there, you know, you might run into this too, is you do the outside of the build first and then just make the layout work. And for this is definitely more squishy than I intended. But everything fits well. But I did have to like put the small dining room in the kitchen. So not ideal, but I think ends up working really well for this build. And one thing I didn't mention is each of these houses only have one room. So you could have at most, as is, 2 Sims live in one of the houses. But of course, you'll see a little bit later, you could adjust. Well, if you're playing spellcasters, you can adjust, but there is a cauldron room that I made. And so if you are playing just like normal Sims, you could just take that room out and make it work for like a skill building room or another bedroom. So anyways, I didn't intend for this to be a 1-bedroom house. I honestly thought that there was plenty of room for multiple Sims, but once I got the layout together, I was like, oh, I guess this is what we're working with. But hopefully it will work for your build. I was definitely thinking of for your gameplay, sorry, not build. I was definitely thinking of this in terms of having like magical students living here. Obviously this wouldn't be a dorm room, it's way too nice for that. But like something along those lines, like housing that you could get for being at that school. But you can see there is that line there, and I tried so many things to get it to disappear. I was so frustrated, and part of that is because the foundation it's built on is different from the rest of the house. But what ended up fixing it is I just backed out of the game and came back in, and it's so funny how many problems are solved by doing that. So it's always a good way, if something's not working out for you and like there's weird shadows, there's weird lighting, usually leaving and coming back in tends to help, which I think is funny. So talking about kind of making the layout work, this living room I really struggled with initially. So I did kind of have to scoot the couch to the point where the wall is kind of next to it, and it was really bothering me. But definitely seeing it here, the final effect, I feel like you don't even notice. And I just think, you know, it really needed more space than trying to squash it in so close to the wall. And of course, I really wanted a fireplace. I just thought both of these houses needed a fireplace. It just made sense to me. So I wanted to make it work. And so this is what I came up with. And I, you know, just had to live with the fact the couch was going to be there. But again, I'm sure nobody noticed until I pointed it out now. But it was definitely something on my mind. But it came together really nicely. So didn't even mention all the clutter that just appeared. But basically, I just went through the entire catalog and pulled out a ton of stuff that I thought would work well. And what's funny is for the second house, I usually just came back to this house and I dropped all the different items that I wanted because I already knew I'd looked through everything. So you can see we have like the little jars from Outdoor Retreat, and then those little bottles are from our wedding stories. I can't remember. I can't remember now. But I, of course, wanted to kind of have it in here because I think it looks like little jars of, you know, ingredients for potions and things like that. So I think it works in a witchy kind of build. And then that light actually is from high school years. and I've never used it, the ceiling lamp. Never have used it. But I think it was perfect for this build, and it's so cool. It's super, super fun to discover. Or, I mean, honestly, for me, I'm kind of rediscovering all of the catalog. So that was a fun addition that I really liked. So here you can see I'm doing my best to clutter up the study area with a very small space. And I will say, because I did clutter a lot and I also was trying to fit in a lot to this build, it is likely that the version that you download on the gallery will have a few changes where I might need to move things around because the sim can't quite navigate. But fingers crossed for me that everything just works. I do try and place things in a way that I think will be fine for routing, but it's so easy to just assume that, oh yeah, this will be fine. And then, you know, a light's in the way, or there's a random item that sticks out too far. And I will say the cauldron room is one that I anticipate will have to change a little bit, but of course what matters for this build is having the cauldron, and we have that. So I'll be sure that will definitely end up in the final version of this build that will be on the gallery. Which, speaking of, I just wanted to mention play testing is gonna be kind of slow going for me. I just don't have a ton of time this time of the year, and playtesting takes just a long time for me. I don't know. I feel like I'm doing something wrong, but it takes a long time, and when I run into issues, it takes me long and I get like discouraged. That's one thing I know. I am just not a person who plays The Sims. I build in The Sims because I'm just not built for actually playing the game. I hate how long it takes your Sims to do things. I just hate waiting. I get so impatient. I think it's pretty funny, but so I hate playtesting basically. So it takes me a little while. I'm really, really hoping to get this on the gallery. What's today? Is it Friday? I'm hoping to get it up on the gallery this weekend. So hopefully that will work for you. But yeah, this is definitely going to be one that I'm not super confident well, all of the items will work out, but I do know that it turned out really pretty, and that's what, you know, matters to me when I'm building. Like I am building for the aesthetics, but of course at the end of the day, I really think it's cool that people want to play in the builds I make. So of course I want it to be playable, but you know, when I'm building, I build to make it pretty, and then when I do post it to the gallery, I make sure to make it playable as best I can. I definitely miss stuff. I guess this is kind of on my mind because there was like some discussion on Sims Twitter about like playtesting and builders being sure to playtest their builds. And definitely, just so you know, if I ever do miss something and some of my build isn't functional, there's something in the way, it is never an intention of mine. And I'm sure that's the same for other builders. Like, it sucks when things don't work well and that we miss something. And it's easy, I think, for a lot of us to do because we don't play the game. So there's some stuff to you that might be obvious, but yeah, I definitely miss. So just wanted to be sure you all know I would never intentionally make a build unplayable. Though I will say I do sometimes, like, I make bookshelves unusable because like there's other options in the build to reach a different bookshelf, and that's just because like I generally like to have some stuff in front of a bookshelf. I think it looks really nice to have that, and so I know like that particular shelf won't be usable. Anyways, that's all on my mind right now, but I'm sure it's probably not that exciting to you. But of course, like when I'm doing this, it's just all these things pop up in my mind and I have a million ideas a minute. There's so much I always want to share, but then I start thinking about something else, or get distracted, or there's like a noise, and so I think of something else. So I definitely apologize if I'm a little bit all over the place. I will say this is, I think, my 10th attempt at a voiceover, and I was able to get 30 minutes in, and then I got a phone call and it totally distracted me, so I had to restart, which is, you know, not a big deal, but it does make it hard for me to know what I've already said. So sorry if I have said something, or also like implied I had said something but I haven't even mentioned it yet. It's probably because I mentioned it in a different video or a different voiceover attempt. So anyways, we did that entire upper floor and I didn't really talk about it. But that specifically, the room with the bed in it, I love how it turned out. It is definitely, I think I would say, no, it's not my favorite room, but it's probably my second favorite room in this build. I just think it's so pretty and moody and really gave the vibe that I was going for. And it was a fun way to round out the build of the darker house, because at that point I was like, oh, I'll finish this build in a day, it will be no problem. And that was where I had to end the first day of building. This build ended up taking me a surprisingly long amount of time, and I'm sure that's the case for a lot of builders right now, because I am loving building for the new pack. It's so fun and so inspiring, but it is like you forget the fact that you're furnishing 2 entire houses. So it definitely takes a lot longer to do that. And so that's also why it's been kind of hard to play test, because I've been building builds for me that are so much bigger. Because if you have seen my channel before, I very much enjoy doing tiny house builds, which I definitely will get back to for sure. But this level of detail and stuff is a little different for me. So here you can see I wanted to put a ton of plants in the window. And the one thing that sucks is if you put them out too far, the lighting switches to the outdoor lighting, so it turns blue. I'm sure you might see it when I adjust things. There, yeah, you can kind of see it there. The items turn kind of blue. And I obviously didn't want that. So I will say the shelf looks a little strange, but I just thought it was such a cool idea and definitely struck that balance between like the modern aspect and the more whimsical aspect. So I just had to put it there. I think it looks nice, and it made sense for this sim, who I kind of saw as much more of a green thumb, and I thought they would propagate and have a ton of plants in their window. So I really like the effect of it. But here you can see we're working on the other part of the kitchen. I cluttered up my builds so much this time around. I think every room has just a little bit of clutter, if not a ton. So here you can see we have this shelf from, I think it's Country Kitchen Kit. I think that's what it is. I think that was the first kit we got, actually. Anyways, and I really like it, and it was too, like, the layout was kind of weird to put cabinets across because of the window. So I thought this shelf had a good scale for what we were able to do with this build. And I could fit a ton of clutter on it, so it worked out for me. And I really like how this turned out. I did struggle a little bit to decide on the tile, and definitely with this build, I wasn't exactly sure what style I was going for. So I kind of ended up being a little bit vintage, but with like a modern edge, which is kind of what I did in the other build, but it was just a lot more moody, and this is a lot more bright and cheery. So here you can see I'm using the book nook shelving again, like I did with my first build, and I just wanted to add a ton of clutter, and this was definitely why this build took so long. I was kind of confused what was taking so long, but every room I cluttered up like crazy, and had to use the tool mod a bunch to adjust it. So in the end, it's not really a mystery, but watching this back, I understand why it took me a while. But you can see a lot of different elements. I wanted it to be cool, but magical. So I tried to grab items that have a lot more whimsy and mix them in with like modern, cool kind of pieces. And you guys, I love the book nook kit. I can't even explain to you how it feels like the kit I've always wanted. I will be having those library shelves or bookshelves in every build. Like, I don't think I'll be able to stop myself. I love it. I think it adds so much to every single room, and it's like the perfect way to add a little pop of color. It's such a dream of mine to have a bookshelf like that. So yeah, I am going to be using that a lot, and I love the book nook kit, and I'm so happy I'm building again so I can use it. But here you can see I'm working on like the little corner of the dining room, and again, it was a little squishy, so I couldn't really put down a table, but I ended up using that shelf from Jungle Adventure. Okay, I'm remembering some of the names, and I really like what the decor element it adds in, and it kind of ties in the kitchen to the dining room. Yeah, and I think it turned out really cute. But here you can see we're about to move on to the bathroom, and I struggled with the layout of this because that window was there, and it was cutting into the toilet, which bothered me. So in a second, you'll see me just readjust everything. I moved the door so it would be a layout that just made more sense because I did this, and I do think it would be usable, but it's just weird. It looks awkward. So all of this will change in just a moment, and there we go. But yeah, so I wanted this again to be bright but still have kind of a vintage feel. And that's also why I think I really enjoyed doing these builds, because it definitely is in the realm of my style, and I always have fun kind of doing things that are a little bit more like me, I guess. It's just me, but make it witchy. So yeah, you can see this room, which if you remember back to my original like layout and how I had kind of partitioned the house, this room was initially intended to be a bathroom, but I was like, there is no space where I really could put a desk, only a small desk. And I was like, why does this house need 2 bathrooms? I do personally, for my own gameplay, when I do play The Sims, I like having bathrooms on multiple levels of the house because I just think it's easier. But I really thought this would be like better for your game, to have an actual like study area. And also, you know what, it gave me an opportunity to clutter more, which I definitely took advantage of with this build. And I did talk about the other room being my second favorite, and this is easily my favorite. I really love how it turned out. And here you can see I'm gonna clutter up some shelves, and you're gonna see it cut from being not really cluttered to entirely cluttered. And oh yeah, and so you will see that obviously I just zoomed away from it. In real time, it was not a complete zoom away, but you'll see it in the final shots. So actually, we're coming to the end of the build. So I want to thank you so much for watching. I really hope you're enjoying the new pack. Definitely let me know your thoughts and feelings. As someone who doesn't play the game, I don't really know how it's going. I haven't really seen if it's buggy or anything, but I really, really hope this works for your game. Anyways, I hope you have a great day, great night. I hope you're enjoying this holiday season. Thank you so much for watching and supporting my little channel here on YouTube. Bye!